Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Good evening and hello. I'm going to tell you a bit about myself before I get into my presentation. Like you see there, I don't know, can all of you all see the font up there? Clear? Okay. So I was an entrepreneur of sorts, I say, because entrepreneur is a very wide, broad word. For about 14 years, I built and ran a cluster of businesses that specialize in technology and communication. In 2010, our businesses, all of them, closed down. We use the word retired, a very graceful word. I pretty much lost everything that I had made since my youthful days till last year, except a few lessons. And those 10 lessons are what I'm going to present to you today. And for those who don't know, my name is Hassen. Just so you know, none of these experiences were actually planned. They just happened, just like a lot of things in life itself. My first lesson here is about passion. I was very passionate about computers from the first time I came across them, somewhere in 1989. And in 94, I got my first computer. And to the geeks here, you would know what a 386SX means. To everybody else, it's a computer with a black screen and a white cursor. And that is what my first computer looked like. It was actually a keyboard with a CPU built to it. So it was very portable to some extent, quite heavy though. Windows 95 had just come out around that time, and I was very inspired by the OS revolution. In 96, together with a couple of other friends of mine, we worked on a DOS clone. DOS clones were big at that time. We had the DOS, Dr. DOS, something DOS, and everything else DOS, so we had a DOS too. It was called iDOS. It had nothing to do with the iMac or the iPod. It was just I for me, so iDOS. It started up, it was amazing, but then it crashed. It had this white cursor just blinking on screen, doing nothing more. But there was something exciting about the cursor blinking on screen. We still wanted to do great stuff. And as a result, we founded a company, a startup called SiliconSoft. That we were in school, and that was the school I went to at the time, Dulwich High School in New South Wales in Australia. We were 12, and we had no idea what we were doing. But the crazy guy in me was determined to build this tech company that did great things, groundbreaking being the key word. So SiliconSoft, as it was called, it formed what was the foundation to 4 businesses that would run for the next 14 years. As the businesses grew, we realized that our biggest motivator was to actually build products, deliver solutions that actually kicked ass. That being the key word, kick ass. We were about a bunch of guys who really loved to deliver, and I know I have 2 people here at least from my old team, and they will agree with me when I said we love to deliver. We rarely fell asleep. They know that too. We would have worked for like 4 to 5 days just trying to deliver a product. So what does this mean in our business? Passion to us was a very central thing. Every company that you come across has a statement that it makes. Generally, most statements start with what's called a vision. To us, we found that passion was the most central thing, the most human element that connects to this business vision, and we defined at the very beginning. Our passion as a business was to deliver wow in everything we do. And then came the vision, and then came a mission that actually drove the business. And these were things that we truly stuck to. And the business itself was called Spectra Worldwide, as it was in the end. We took it further by integrating it to our tagline. And we realized the ultimate thing about all of us was to be creative, to have a crazy imagination, and that was our business. So in every part of our branding, everything that we did, everything about our people, we embedded those values. We weren't just another shop, we knew that, and our customers really saw this thing that we delivered wow in everything we did. And these are the kind of names that we actually worked with in the end. So these are pretty big names, and they trusted us to deliver wow every time they came to us. In a broader sense, I always look up to bigger businesses who actually achieved. The power of passion. There's no better example than Apple and Steve Jobs. And for over 4 decades, they've kept transforming the technology landscape. So the lesson that I bring here is that if you're passionate about what you do, your work stops being just work. My next point is about belief. That's a statement that I still live by, and I wake up every morning, that I know that everything that I do today and every result that I gain today is of my own destiny and my own choosing. I believe that, well, it is my belief that I can do anything I choose to do, like I just said. And that translates into a business, the belief to be able to steer a business, to be able to deliver great products and services, and to the people who work with us, to give a great place to work. These were the central beliefs. But something that I connect to in my personal life is when I was 19, I moved out of my parents' home. I'm not going to go into reasons, but this was circumstantial. So at that time, I had to learn the difference between ego and confidence. And that's a lesson that I always bring forward. To know the realities of confidence versus the expectations of your ego. And to be able to differentiate between fantasy and dream. So if you truly believe in something, I think you should never be afraid to get out of the comfort zone. My mom wasn't cooking dinner for me anymore, and my laundry wasn't just getting done. I had to factor these things into my life now, and it was out of the comfort zone. And moving out to me prepared and sharpened me to continuously achieve this vision. So in our business, I'll give you an example. In 2006, Apple announced a shift to Intel microprocessors. If you are familiar with what they did, they used to use a processor called the PowerPC. They switched to Intel. These products were moving beyond their traditional markets, beyond the usual Photoshop and Illustrator crowd. And to us, this was an opportunity, and we wanted everybody else to hear about it. So we set up a little business called Onto. Within a couple of years of forming Onto, it became the fastest growing reseller for Apple in this country, fastest growing authorized reseller. And something that's important to remember is that Onto in 2009 closed the single biggest sale of iPods ever to this date, even after 2 years after its closure. So the power of belief, in a broader sense, again, I look up to people like Bill Gates, who actually believed in the software industry. There was no software licensing industry before Microsoft came about. Microsoft actually pioneered that. I know the open source geeks would want to shoot me right now for saying this, but that's the truth. And they pioneered software licensing. So that's something to look up to. So the lesson I bring forward here is believe in your ability. If you don't, nobody else will. Ignore the noise. You'll hear a lot about it. Oh, don't do this, it's wrong. When we wanted to do Cell Max, nobody wanted us to do it because it was a very specialized, niche product, they called it. So things like that. Ignore the noise and keep marching forward. This is my second lesson. And the third one is about knowing the shop floor. I started 4 business ventures over time. And this is how they looked. There was obviously a group management business, but there were 4 discrete business units. I had to know everything that I did in our business. As supposed chief, the head of the business, I had to actually know what we were doing. And to me, I had to know that on a daily basis. This is why. When you are too small and when you make mistakes, you don't usually have a lot of money to spend on those mistakes, to resolve them. It's your reputation in terms of delayed product shipments or delayed deliveries to customers. That's reputation that goes out. So you can't afford to make mistakes. And I didn't want to simply believe in anyone else's excuse. It's not that I didn't have faith in people, but I just didn't want to believe anybody else's reasons or excuses or why things couldn't be done, why it shouldn't be done, why it wasn't done. I wanted to know it. And to steer the business through its course, you have to have clear awareness of why the business is going the way it's going. And most importantly, if we are supposed to be a company that's driving on innovation, how do you do that accurately without clear knowledge of what's really going on? People hate the word micromanagement, and that's something that I'm very associated with. But it works. A few weeks ago, you could have asked this man, and he would have told you what micromanagement is all about. Obstacles. Factor those in. That's my 4th lesson. my lesson is that if you really look at obstacles and you factor them in early, they aren't really obstacles. I dropped out of college almost within the first year. And a lot of people thought it was cool, just like copying Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I wasn't doing that. I actually did it because I couldn't afford it. But then I looked back to people like Nelson Mandela, who were in prison for 27 years. He was actually in prison for longer than I was alive at that time. So it didn't change his goal, and neither did it change mine. So the lesson here with obstacles is calculate your strength. Factor the obstacles in so that you are aware of it. Accept them, understand that they happen, don't cry about them. Crying doesn't get you anywhere. And work around them. See the positive in every obstacle that comes about. You'll see opportunity at the end of it. The next lesson is about being myself. Am I being too fast or too slow? I'm okay. Stop following the mainstream. It's really that simple. I was 19 and I was still a kid to a lot of traditional business people and to competitors who just saw me come out of nowhere and take over their bit of the market, especially in the Apple business, for example. And I knew it too. So, but yet, though I was a kid at 19, I didn't want our businesses to appear immature. Because it's driven by a young guy, it's easy to call it an immature business. It may not be. These are the kind of names and chairman, managing director, CEO, vice president, you can, long list. These are the terms that my friends and some colleagues who were running business at the time chose to go with. I actually skipped these because they didn't truly capture the kind of message that I brought about and the kind of value that I was planning on delivering in our business. I chose to work with the term Chief Visionary Officer. And what did it mean? Well, it was me. It really was me. And I wasn't overstating myself either. And another business that I took a lot of personal attention to is Onto, our Apple business. So I was called the guy with ideas there. And these are official designations. These are not just names we put on because it looked cool. Ultimately, these designations, the titles, were not just about positions either. It was about how I connected with these businesses, how I engaged with them. It really spoke to the world about what I did. So stepping out of the mainstream, again, a real world example, as I'd call it, is Apple. It was very unusual in 2001 for a tech company to go and open up a chain of retail stores. Tech companies don't open retail, they open service centers. And Apple stepped out of the mainstream and they went into retail as early as 2001. And today they have record sales. No one is going to challenge us on that. And they set milestones, not just for tech companies, but for retail in general. Carrying forward the message of Apple, in 2007 they announced the iPhone. And with that, they changed the name of the company from Apple Computer Inc. to Apple Inc. because they were moving beyond the computer. And it has continuously moved away from the mainstream. Just look at their history and you'll know. So the lesson here is, if you're serious about what you do, don't be afraid to step out of the mainstream. Because ultimately, the mainstream will follow you. Lesson 6, be renowned. If you have something great to offer, the world will listen to you. But you must tell them how super cool and renowned you really are. That's important. We became our customers' preferred source for anything technology, for all the businesses that we did. They told in Sri Lanka, and especially in Sri Lanka, people tell their families, it's too small for the word not to spread. So they tell their families, the friends who incidentally own other businesses, and we connect. So the message spreads. And this is an example of how Onto became successful. We offered value before they even made a purchase. Value to the extent where we would talk to switchers. That was our primary market. Switchers found confidence in us when buying their Macs. And that's because we were renowned. We were able to answer all their questions about switching. I learned about sales from this guy called Jeffrey Gitomer. Again, Google him. He taught me through his podcast and through his books, audiobooks, how to establish confidence with customers. And ultimately, the trick here was to let customers buy, not to sell to them. There's a big difference in that. Customers like to buy, but they don't like to be sold. So that's just one lesson. Understand how your customers perceive you. It makes all the difference. Truly understand that. And show them that you are an authority in your trade. We chose to be authorities in everything that we sold. Keep marching forward. I keep saying marching forward. As you learn soon, failure was, in our course. So how do you manage failure? These were some of the challenges that we faced. We were a small company, so the recession, with Barack Obama came a recession, nothing to do with each other, but thereabouts came a recession. And because we were a small company, we didn't have much in the lines of capital. We were investing heavily into these new things that we wanted to do. And ultimately, with recession, customers want cheap solutions, cheaper products, cheaper services, competition. So in mid-2009, we decided to shut Spectra worldwide. But we had a lot of customers who were on contract. The last thing we wanted to do was, dishonor our contracts and start. One is, to grab a bad name with our customers, the community, and mostly we just didn't want to go to courts. Okay, so we informed every customer about our decision. That was important. And truly informed them. I wrote letters to every single customer, and that we gave them peace of mind to tell them that we will support them in their transition, mainly technology investments, not just Macs, but web applications and stuff like that. That we will help them move to a new service provider. We will help them. We'll support them completely gratis. That gave them that confidence that, okay, peace of mind, we're not going to lose much. Despite disclosure, we honored every contract, which some closed fairly recently, which we still honored. So Spectra Worldwide, I'm proud to say this, that we actually reach graceful closure with all our customers. And today, when you call some, they still have a lot of respect for us. I think it's very important in a place like Colombo, especially. If people could just stone you, the same guy walked down the road. You don't have that. So what did this closure mean to me personally? I think one of the most emotional things that I ever did was to hand the keys to our office. And that was one of the most difficult emotions that I ever experienced. This is not our actual office, but this is the closest I could find to a picture of IBM building at Nawamawata. Again, those who are from the old days will remember the place. But then I look back and I remembered, along with the most difficult emotion, that there are people like this. To those who have heard of Professor Randy Pausch, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He was a computer science professor at Carnegie Mellon. He delivered what was called the last lecture. Go Google him. His words were, "You can't control the cards you're dealt, just how you play the hand." So that resonated in my mind to say, you can't change how this happens. You just have to do it properly. You just have to manage it. So the lesson here was to be graceful. Be graceful, be graceful. Make notes of everything that happens, remember the lessons, and again, move forward. Next lesson is about confidence and how do you continue it. To me, I guess I still look at some of these things and I think I was a failure in how I ran a lot of things. And I'm pretty embarrassed. So this is the first time I'm actually coming out publicly talking about what really happened in our business. I was rejected, but I still loved what I did. Incidentally, Steve Jobs said the same thing at the Stanford University speech that he did. But the point here is, I had lost. But I remember that I still loved what I did. And I eventually realized that I was an employable failure, because the lessons from my past were useful to a lot of my customers and people out there. So I leveraged some of these skills and some of the experience that I gained over the years. And today I help customers, build technology strategies, business strategies, bringing together my entrepreneurial past. So I go with a title like this. I don't like long words, but that's how people understand us. Incidentally, it's also given me time to do what I love, things to explore my other passions. And one is as a photographer. So for those who've are on Facebook, check out my Facebook page. Hopefully you like what you see. That's an inspiration, Richard Branson, to me. I see Richard Branson and I think, okay, there have been many Virgin brands which actually didn't make it, but he's continued to preserve and build the confidence in Virgin as a top tier brand, as a brand that people trust, despite some of its brands that didn't quite make it. And Virgin Galactic is the first space line. They're promising to take you to space. How cool is that? That's confidence. That's their tagline. I reckon I've never come across a cooler tagline than that. So when you get the time, how to succeed at failure? Richard Branson's article on American Express on their website. So the lesson from all this is, when failure strikes, the first value of yours that goes down is your confidence or your belief in yourself. That's the first value that gets hit. Restore that confidence, and eventually the other values and others in the broader sense will follow. Continue to march forward. One of the topics I hate to talk about, but it's the truth. Choose good partners. I'm yet to come across anyone who's not made this mistake. You look at Steve Jobs to Bill Gates, everybody else, everybody switched partners along the way because they've made some bad decisions. I am guilty as accused as well. But the thing is, you learn from all this. You learn from choosing the wrong partners, the wrong people to help you manage businesses with. The truth is, you should never hire bozos. And this is Steve Jobs saying this. I love the word bozos because I see a lot of bozos when I talk to them. So I know that's the egoistic me, but don't hire bozos. And this is one of my favorite lines. If you're an A player, hire only A players. Steve Jobs said this, and I think about it a lot, and I realize if you're a B player, you'll only hire C players, because B players don't like to hire other B players because they'll rise above them. But if you're an A player, you'll always pick the best you can get, who will eventually run the business. To succeed at hiring the right partners or having the right partners on board with you, they must share the same core values as you do. If not, your marriage is going to fail. And some of the most basic values that you must share are passion and belief in the business, in your mission as a whole. While you do that, they must also commit to some basic qualities. And these qualities are focus and integrity. If they don't have that, they're not going to be for your business or for your mission. So don't entrust your vision in the hands of those who don't truly share your values. The lesson here is understand what you truly seek in your partners. Don't just hire them for the sake of hiring partners, or I need a partner, I need another director in my company. No, that's not what you need. You need to look out and see, what do I really need in the next person? Listen to your gut. Sometimes we get overwhelmed by CVs and track records and bank balances and crazy things like that. But if you see someone, no matter how wealthy or how powerful or how influential they may be, if your gut tells you, don't go with him, trust your gut. Hire only A players, and I repeat, don't hire bozos. Again, another one of those topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about, accept fault. Nobody wants to accept where things went wrong. Sometimes I don't either. But very few will want to believe that things could have been done differently. Today, when we look back, we think of it, but at that time, very few want to think of it. And very few will accept it even today. And when I look at myself today, I realize that I was probably one of the biggest contributors to the failure of my business. That's how I look at it. If I had the slightest inclination on why or how things were happening, I would have probably reduced the amount of damage. I don't know whether my ways at the time would have permitted complete avoidance, but at least reduced the amount of damage that was caused. So these points I've shared with you today form the basis of my values, and most of it is how our businesses rose to their prime and eventually collapsed. I hope that makes sense. So moving forward, make the most of what you learned. I love this statement. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you wanted. And I've got a bit of it. At the end of all this, why these 10 lessons? They remind me that I'm still alive despite having built a lifetime and focus, energy in a single business. That I'm not invincible as I once probably thought I was, because I just kept making it. So you tend to lose sight of the big picture, and mistakes can really hurt. Be truthful towards everything that you do, including your competitors. Respect and honesty, make it a part of your life. And most importantly, believe that you can do this again. That's where I stand today. So these aren't just some lessons that I share. These are lessons that I keep learning from. To most people, you'd see presentations like this where you're 40 and then you tell a 20-odd-year-old bunch, this is what you should be doing. I am 28 and I'm just sharing it now with you because I think it's important to learn and reflect on it as soon as you do. So before I leave, I want to remember and recognize someone who has contributed significantly to our industry as well as to me personally, Steve Jobs. And I also then want to thank RefreshColombo and Nazli for persevering and having me here. Thank you.